In a small fishing village in the Philippines, poverty was not just a condition, it was a way of life. Among the wooden shacks and rusting boats lived a boy named Jorge. His father rose before sunrise every day, sailing into dangerous waters to catch fish that barely earned enough to feed the family. His mother spent hours washing other people's clothes, her hands cracked and raw from scrubbing. Their tiny home had no electricity, no proper floor, only a weak roof that leaked whenever storms rolled through. Yet, within this harsh reality, Jorge carried something no one could take away, his voice. Since childhood, he had listened to a battered old radio that sometimes worked, sometimes didn't. Whenever the static cleared, music filled his ears, and he mimicked every note until it became second nature. Singing was his escape. In the evenings, after helping his father mend nets, Jorge would sit by the seashore and sing to the waves. The villagers often stopped to listen, their faces lit up by the magic of his voice. "This boy is destined for something greater," they whispered. Still, Jorge doubted himself. How could a poor boy with no shoes, no proper schooling, ever dream of standing on a grand stage? That thought haunted him until one day, a local teacher heard him singing and was so moved that tears filled her eyes. She knelt down, held his shoulders, and told him, "Your voice is a gift. The world must hear it. Go and audition." At first, Jorge hesitated, but deep down he knew this was the chance he had been waiting for. From that day, his dream no longer lived only in the shadows, it became a mission. The morning of the audition arrived, and Jorge had nothing but determination. His family could not afford new clothes, so he wore an old shirt patched by his mother and a pair of faded shorts. His feet were bare, calloused from years of walking on rough village paths. With trembling hands, his mother pressed a few coins into his palm, barely enough for the bus fare. "Sing with all your heart," she whispered, tears shining in her eyes. The journey into the city felt like stepping into another world. Jorge sat quietly in the corner of the bus, holding on to hope and courage. He had never seen such tall buildings, flashing lights, or crowded streets. When he arrived at the massive auditorium, his breath caught in his throat. The stage was enormous, brighter than anything he had imagined. Contestants stood in line, some in fancy clothes, others carrying instruments. Compared to them, Jorge looked fragile, almost invisible. When it was finally his turn, he walked barefoot across the polished floor, every eye following him. The judges glanced at one another, some even skeptical. His thin frame and shy demeanor made him seem unlikely to impress anyone. One judge leaned forward and asked, "What will you be singing today?" Jorge swallowed hard, his voice trembling but steady, "Hotel California." The room fell silent. The audience murmured in disbelief. How could a poor boy attempt such a legendary song? Even the judges raised their eyebrows. But Jorge didn't flinch. He closed his eyes for a moment, took a deep breath, and remembered the voice of his mother, the sound of waves, and the nights he sang under the stars. This was his moment. The first note escaped Jorge's lips, and instantly, the atmosphere shifted. His voice, though young, carried an astonishing blend of strength and emotion. The audience, who moments ago doubted him, leaned in as though magnetized. Each word of "Welcome to the Hotel California" rolled out like a spell. His tone was smooth yet raw, filled with pain and beauty that no amount of training could replicate. The judges were stunned. One, who had been folding her arms with doubt, now slowly lowered her hands, her eyes wide with disbelief. Another judge, known for his harsh critiques, leaned forward, visibly shaken. It was not just the accuracy of Jorge's pitch, it was the story in his voice. Every note carried the struggles of his life, hunger, poverty, hope, and survival. The longer he sang, the more the auditorium transformed. The crowd became silent, entranced by the purity of his sound. His voice rose and fell like the tide, echoing as if the walls themselves were listening. When he reached the chorus, tears streamed down faces across the hall. The power of his singing didn't come from luxury or training, it came from his soul. As Jorge reached the climax of the song, his voice soared higher, trembling with emotion yet unwavering in strength. The final note lingered in the air, wrapping around every heart. Then came the silence, the kind of silence only true greatness can create. And suddenly, like a wave crashing onto the shore, the entire auditorium erupted. People stood, clapping, screaming, crying. The boy who had walked in barefoot had just delivered a performance that silenced the world. The applause thundered across the hall, but Jorge stood frozen, clutching the microphone with shaking hands. His chest heaved as he tried to comprehend what had just happened. One of the judges wiped away tears and whispered into her microphone, "That was extraordinary." Another stood, pointing toward him with disbelief, "You just turned a classic into something new, into something unforgettable." The audience roared louder, chanting his name. Jorge's eyes scanned the room, overwhelmed. For a boy who had once only sung to ocean waves, this moment felt like stepping into a dream. Then, without warning, one judge slammed the golden buzzer. Instantly, the hall exploded with golden confetti, showering Jorge from above. Time seemed to freeze. He fell to his knees, his face buried in his hands as tears poured down his cheeks. The judges rushed to him, hugging him, reassuring him that his voice was not just good, it was life-changing. The audience stood on their feet, some crying uncontrollably, others clapping until their hands turned red. Jorge could barely speak. He whispered, "Thank you," again and again, as if words weren't enough to hold the gratitude bursting inside him. This was not just a victory, it was a miracle. A barefoot boy, once invisible, had now captured the world's spotlight. The golden buzzer wasn't only a ticket to the next stage, it was proof that dreams, no matter how impossible, can come true. That night changed everything. By the next morning, clips of Jorge's performance spread like wildfire across the internet. Millions watched, shared, and cried as they listened to the poor Filipino boy sing Hotel California. Headlines called him the Barefoot Angel, the voice of the Philippines, and the boy who silenced the world. His family's life transformed overnight. Sponsors reached out to support his education, food, and housing. His father no longer had to risk his life fishing in storms, and his mother finally rested her tired hands. The tiny shack they once called home was replaced with a proper house, one filled with laughter, music, and light. But more than the material change, Jorge became a symbol of hope. Across the world, children from poor backgrounds looked at him and believed for the first time that their voices mattered too. He was invited to perform on international stages, yet he always remembered his roots. In every interview, he spoke about his family, his village, and the importance of never giving up. Every time Jorge sang, the audience didn't just hear a song, they heard a story of resilience. His Hotel California performance became legendary, replayed in schools, on television, and on social media. For many, it wasn't just music, it was proof that greatness can rise from the humblest places. From that day forward, Jorge no longer sang to the waves alone. He sang to the world. And the world listened.